Hey, what's up YouTube? This is Drew Meyer with Meyer Construction, and today we're on to the stain. Like I said, I'm going with the wood tone stain and sealer. I'll be applying that with the pump sprayer and then back brushing with this pad, or depending on how it's turning out, this natural bristle brush, because this is an oil-based product. So this brush, if you pick one up, you can actually screw this handle off and put it on a painter's pole also. But if you're going to spray it, you always need to back brush it. A few other things that are nice is this little foam brush setup for doing railings and getting in between spindles and kind of hard to reach areas. These little pads are replaceable. They just Velcro on. Same with this, that's a Velcro. So between all this, I'm gonna spray it. I got my railing to do. That's all gonna be by brush and by my foam pads. Other than that, just painter pails, painter's tray, just to be able to set your brushes and stuff in. Also masking, if you're staining over concrete, make sure to lay down cardboard or mask or builder's paper. But yeah, so we're staining today. You can see with using Cabot's wood brightener and stripper, the results we've achieved and how terrible it looked before, and it's looking pretty darn good right now. I'm personally impressed at kind of what a disaster we had here, and then the shape it is in now. Like I said, the Cabot's stripper and then the wood brightener made a huge difference. I would recommend that. I think they're about 15 bucks a piece. The rail is lightly sanded. So I might start on the railing section, give that deck a little more time to dry in the sun. And I'm using Cabot's wood toned stain and sealer. It's just a little bit of color. And I did get cedar color. It's real light, kind of just enhances the natural color. Maybe a slight yellow or kind of some amber hues. In the past I've used timber oil, but when I bought all this stuff today at the store, this deck was in such bad shape that I figured at least I'd need something with a little color. I was even tempted to go up pigmented, you know, the higher grades that are almost like a paint, to try to get coverage. But man, it's really made a big difference. It was a lot of work to get to this point, but it's worth it, in my opinion. And if I would have done it correctly and done the stripper, done the stripper, then rented the floor sander, and then hit it with the brightener, I would say that's the best order of operations there. And you know, you'd get to this point, you know, you could be here in a day. Granted, if you had a pressure washer on a low setting, but you do have to be careful, especially with cedar, to you know, you really don't want to tear up the deck boards too much. Even using wire brush and pressing down when I was stripping it, I gouged the boards pretty heavily that I had to come back and sand the whole thing again. So just something to be aware of. But yeah, so I think I'm going to start off on the railing section, and I'll get some footage and some tips there. This works really well, like I said, when you're going around spindles, even, you know, on like your bigger areas, turning it sideways. The big thing with this is, you know, you don't want to apply it too heavy. That's a mistake probably a lot of people make, is applying it too heavy. Really, to load this up, there's kind of a sponge in there, so a quick dip is really all you need, and to kind of work it around. So you turn it sideways, and if you apply it too heavy, you'll just have to turn around and wipe it all off. But yeah, this is, using this versus a brush has been nice, just because it's faster, probably easier to use where you're not worried about brush strokes. I'm going to spray the deck now, and basically what I'm going to do is use that pump sprayer and then that foam pad on a painter's pole just to kind of level it out Make sure it's not puddling up. Actually, it might be just as easy to fill that tray and just brush it all with that pad. We'll see how it sprays through that sprayer, depending on the thickness. But yeah, and always kind of check your work as you're going. If you got any drips, keep a rag on you and just wipe them up as you go as it dries. And you can see that there's a little color in there, not much. It'll be interesting to see how it kind of interacts with the leftover spots that I couldn't get off. Either way, it's going to look a lot better than it did previously. I forgot to mention, I hit everything with the Tack Cloth. You could just use a rag. But yeah, this is a pretty neat tool because then when you're done, you just pull the pads off. Menard sells it. Which you can clean them too, but make sure to get the end grain really well. Also the tops of your post. And depending on what type of stain you're using, you know, the ones that are real pigmented, have a lot of solids, real heavy bodied and thick, that's obviously going to increase the difficulty of applying, and you'll have to be a little more careful. You know, you can't get away with kind of what I'm doing. You have to, you know, apply it one section at a time. Be mindful of brush strokes with the grain. And like this deck was built with a lot of Osco building products, like on this railing, which I like. It's a good system. You know, it's an attractive look. But it adds a lot of cost to a deck, because you figure one set, a top rail and a bottom rail, you're gonna have $10 for each section you have, because it's $5. It comes with 2 of these brackets. A post base is like, at the time when I built this, was like $20. So if you have a big deck, you know, you could easily have a couple $100 in hardware and fasteners. So that's just something to keep in mind when you're designing a railing for someone. But as far as structurally, you know, I mean, they're rock solid, and it's a nice connection from your top and bottom rail if you're just doing like a 2x4 rail like this. Because like the last deck I built was just composite green treat, and if you don't have any bracketry and you're just toe screwing, you know, even if you got everything solid and cut your rails really tight, or do a good job toe screwing with the structural screw, over the years, you know, that tends to be a pretty weak joint. You'd be better off maybe using a Craig pocket jig screw, so that way you know your screws are properly placed. Can't beat the look of cedar though. That's why I like using these kind of translucent stains that don't have a lot of color, because all the natural variances kind of come through in the different colors. And this is something that you should apply, best case scenario, every year. This deck sits in the shade most of the day and is pretty well protected. So thanks for watching this series on how to properly prepare and stain wood deck. I hope you guys picked something up from this video, learned something. Again, this was using all Cabot's products just from Menards. The stripper, the brightener, and then the Cabot wood toner sealer. I think I got great results here, especially from where this deck started a few days ago, and you know, the kind of the problem issues of not being properly stained in the past. It looks as good as new, in my opinion. Yeah, it's a lot of work, but if you have a cedar deck or a deck at your house, you do it yourself, you're going to save yourself a ton of money. And then now moving forward from this point, it's just a quick spray with a cleaner, maybe a light brushing, wash it off, and it's ready to go. If you're into just a water sealer, an entry-level stain protection, kind of where grade 1 where I'm at, this is something I would recommend yearly if your deck is in direct sun, or depending on your weather in your area. This sits in the shade, so I might get 2 years out of it. But I hope you guys pick something up from this. If you have any questions, please comment down below. Please go to Meyer Construction, hit like, hit subscribe, and keep hammering.